James Cameron, the Blue Man, the second highest grossing director in film history. A director who has a reputation for pushing the boundaries in both effects and the Geneva Convention, having nearly killed his actors and crew numerous times, even warranting a punch in the face by Ed Harris on the set of The Abyss, which was valid. James Cameron isn't that great of a person, but it'd be stupid to say that he isn't one of the most creative visionaries in Hollywood, making some of the coolest movies ever made, and Piranha 2. So, as my second director ranking, let's look through his short but sweet filmography of 10 films. His 2 documentary films aren't listed as his list of films on Wikipedia, they're in a separate category, so they don't count. So, without further ado, let's rank all the films of James Cameron. Spoiler for some films, by the way. Piranha 2, The Spawning. What do you want me to say? This is a film that James Cameron was tacked onto the last minute after the original director was fired, forcing to work with a crew that didn't speak English and with actors who couldn't act, and Lance Henriksen. The film was a disaster from the get-go, and it doesn't even have the decency to be funny bad. It's just boring. So the film takes place in a resort, and nearby there's an abandoned ship with killer piranhas, except they fly now. The deaths in this movie are from a couple who have... The first deaths in this movie are from a couple who have scuba sex. I mean, it's creative, but why? Even logistically, you're going to get a lot of water up there. Okay, I'll stop. This film also has B-movie syndrome, where it feels the need to throw in constant female nudity and only female nudity. Specifically female nudity. When they're in swimsuits, they look hot, especially there's one woman at the beginning who's attracted to it, the dentist. However, the nudity is a bit much. The characters suck and are boring to watch. The cinematography is okay, I guess. The editing sucks ass. The writing is cheap. Some effects look pretty good and other times they're bargain bin level effects. The story doesn't even matter, and the ending is rushed as hell. Which is funny because this film is about as slow as a goddamn turtle. Titanic felt faster than this, both the movie and the boat. It's not the worst movie ever, but it's still pretty terrible. Some occasional funny bits, but overall pointless unless you're doing a James Cameron movie ranking. F tier. Can we get to the real movies now? The Terminator. Alright, here we go. Now we're getting to the great shit. This is his first real movie, and you can tell immediately as his style is oozing all over this. The film's plot, if you somehow don't know, follows Sarah Connor as she is chosen as the target of the Terminator, a robot covered in human tissue who is seemingly unstoppable. A human also sent back from the future, Kyle Reese, is sent to protect her, as in the future, the world is desolate and the humans are at war with the machines. However, her future son, John Connor, convinces everyone to fight back. So, Sarah Connor has to try and survive while being pursued by the Terminator. The film is dripping with atmosphere, helping the horror aesthetic. The characters are fantastic and interesting, with Sarah obviously being my favorite in the movie. In the sequel, that would change, but we'll get to that. The performances fit everyone perfectly, especially Arnold Schwarzenegger as the titular character. He is absolutely terrifying in the role, helping the film be scarier than it should be. The film also has the first couple of actors in James Cameron's troupe of idiots. This is the group of actors that consistently appear in his movies. In this case, it's Schwarzenegger, Lance Henriksen, and Michael Biehn. But, of course, the real stars of the show are the effects and action. Some of them look a little dated by today's standards, obviously, but for a movie in literally 1984 with a measly $6.5 million budget, this film still looks fantastic. The makeup effects on the Terminator are insane. How the hell did they do this effect? The action is also fantastic, keeping the energy high as well as the stakes. I love chase movies, and the final chase in this movie is massively satisfactory. Satisfactory. That's what I said. In terms of issues, the film grinds to a halt at a small bit in the middle. Something that Cameron's later films would do much better. It's not that much of an issue, though. This film still kicks major ass over 40 years later. Christ, we're all gonna die someday. This goes in A tier. Aliens. Do I need to say it? Aliens is one of the greatest sequels, sci-fi movies, and horror movies ever made. transcending every expectation and even garnering James Cameron's first couple of Oscars. Well, none of them went to him, but still. It paved the way for what his career became. The film takes place immediately after the first, where Ripley is going insane from being the only survivor of the last xenomorph. She finds out that they colonized the planet with the xenomorph ship and goes with a group of gung-ho soldiers to investigate. Her fears are brought to light as the settlement is completely destroyed and they're not only attacked by a xenomorph, but a horde of them. The only survivor is a small girl, nicknamed Newt. The best part of the film is easily the characters and writing. One thing that Cameron prioritizes, aside from his action and effects, is writing and characters. His films, at least his older ones, defy expectations of what an action movie could be. They could be smart, they could be thought-provoking, they could be art. The relationship between Ripley and Newt is the emotional center of the film, and it permeates throughout the rest of the film. You get invested as Ripley learns to care for Newt, but then you get crushed seeing Newt's innocence lost at such a young of an age. The entire final sequence of Ripley looking for Newt is so heart-stopping, that's not even getting into the horror, which we'll get to later. The other characters work well off each other, especially Dwayne Hicks, played by Michael Biehn. The recurring pack of morons in this are Biehn, Hendrickson, and Paxton, with newcomers being Sigourney Weaver and Jeanette Goldstein. Hudson and Vasquez are great, and Burke is such a good side antagonist. When he shuts the door on the main characters, I wanted to beat his ass to oblivion, and thankfully, the film answered my prayers and killed him off. The film's writing is also sharp, not being too on the nose, but also being clear and on point with its themes of redemption, motherhood, and dealing with aliens scientifically, or blowing them the up. On top of that, the performances are fantastic, especially Weaver. She just sells the role perfectly, as she did in the first film. As I mentioned, the horror is perfect. You go in and expecting the characters to be safer because they all have guns and shit. But then you remember, these guys are near damn unkillable. The first scene with the xenomorphs plowing down almost an entire squadron of soldiers in 5 minutes proves how f***ing terrifying they truly are. The film doesn't need jump scares to be scary, like the first film. Sure, there are jump scares here or there, but they don't constantly come at you out of nowhere. It both builds up dread and sends shivers down your spine about how freaky these nasty pieces of shit look, especially the alien queen. The action keeps the tension up a lot and is awesome as hell. It gets my testosterone going crazy. It really feels like an evolution of the Terminator in every way, feeling like Cameron is using every last cent of the increased budget. Some effects look a little bit dated by today's standards, obviously, like the Terminator, but it overall still looks phenomenal, especially the puppetry. On other aspects, the direction is spectacular, the pacing is near perfect, the editing and cinematography well done, the score is great, the sets, holy f***ing shit, the sets, they look just as fantastic as the effects. Overall, I still prefer the original Alien over this, but they are pretty much neck to neck in my rankings. One's a near-perfect sci-fi horror movie, and the other's a near-perfect sci-fi action movie, both of which are beaten by another of their kind. In the case of the former, it's The Thing, which is my favorite horror movie of all time, but in the case of the latter, we'll get to that film later. For now, this goes in S tier. The Abyss. This, in my opinion, is James Cameron's most underrated film. It was his first movie to use CGI and it still holds up, even to this day. Despite that, this was the first Cameron movie to be known for its production issues, due to the fact that the film was mainly filmed underwater. Ed Harris nearly died and he punched James Cameron in the face, which was a valid response, as I said in the intro. Anyways, what's the film about? Well, after a US submarine sinks unexpectedly, the government believes that it's the doings of the USSR because Cold War bad, communism bad. The government sent a bunch of army men onto a mining rig to investigate. Along with them, there's the designer of the rig, Lindsay, whose ex-husband, Bud, still works on the rig. However, a storm on the surface cuts them off from the boat above and leaves them stranded. While stuck, they discover what's truly in the abyss of the ocean, as well as finding out conspiracies within their group. Before I glaze the shit out of this movie, I need to mention the fact that this film has 3 different kinds of stories it wants to tell. A tense underwater thriller, a Cold War allegory, and a magical sci-fi story. Sometimes it can feel like all three elements are at odds with each other, but overall I do think they come together to make a very unique story with compelling themes. The only returning actor from Cameron's group of imbeciles is Michael Biehn, who plays a villain instead of the supporting hero this time, and he works well in the role. He's pretty convincing as the insane Colonel Coffee. Ed Harris and Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio, I said that right, are also pretty great. The characters are one of the film's best elements. Like Aliens, they're incredibly memorable and work well off each other. Blood and Lindsay's dynamic is compelling and for me, the best part of this movie, aside from the effects. At first, you think it'll be the generic couple hates each other, but they learn to love each other by the end again. Like that dumbass Nile movie with Michael Douglas and what's her name? Kathleen Turner. No, not her. I think it is her. Doesn't matter. They do that a bit, but by the second half, their dynamic is the emotional center of the film, and it gives both actors their best moments in the film. Speaking of effects, yeah, they're pretty great. The CGI water creature especially looks phenomenal. Wish I could show it to you. It really looks like it's there. The practical effects are just as impressive. All the underwater stuff they did was incredibly impressive, even if you didn't need to try and kill your actors in order to achieve them. James. The score from Alan Silvestri is equal parts ethereal and scary, an element that will come back later for another Cameron score. The pacing is sometimes a bit slow, but is overall pretty good. The editing and cinematography are great, the direction is sharp, and the writing is emotional and witty. It goes in A tier, below The Terminator. This film doesn't get as much attention as it deserves, but in my opinion, I think it deserves to be talked about as much as the Cameron masterpieces, such as Terminator 2. Judgment Day. Like, what the do you want me to say? This Terminator 2 Judgment Day is not only one of the greatest sequels ever made, but maybe also the greatest action movie of all time, perchance. Like, it is leaps and bends ahead of everyone else by a continent mile. The film takes place 10 years after the original. John Connor is 10 years old and is angsty as his mother, Sarah, is in prison and has gone insane from knowing the date of Judgment Day, the day the machines took over. She's the only person that knows it, and as a result, no one believes her. The Schwarzenegger, that's what I'm going to call him, yes, is sent back to protect him, while T-1000, an improved version that is made from liquid metal, is sent to kill John. Both the Schwarzenegger and John go to get Sarah back, but do you need me to tell you the plot of the movie? You know it, I know it. It was the film that showed that action could be more than just popcorn fun. It could make you think about the future and the dangers of AI. This film is incredibly relevant to today's society, as AI is being implemented into everything more and more. If we're not careful, we'll create our own Judgment Day. We're just a couple minutes away from Skynet, I'm telling you now. The themes of AI are juxtaposed beautifully with the themes of fatherhood and friendship, as well as the idea of a machine being more capable of understanding humanity than humans, as long as you teach them well. The bond shared between the Schwarzenegger and John is the best dynamic in any James Cameron movie. Hell, in any action movie. They work off each other fantastically, as well as being acted brilliantly by Schwarzenegger and Eddie Furlong. Sarah is extremely badass and also has some fantastic character development, as well as having an outstanding performance from Linda Hamilton. The T-1000 is terrifying, thanks both in part to Robert Patrick Cole performance and the effects team making him 10 times scarier. My God, the effects. Oh, holy Jesus. The best use of CGI and practical effects in film history. The only film that could top it effects-wise is Transformers 07. The action sequences are mind-blowing. Some of the best. I still get excited rewatching them over and over again, even though I know it's going to happen. Just talk about this film makes me want to watch it again. I think I've seen it 4 times now, but I don't even care. I'll watch it over and over. It is phenomenal. The editing and cinematography are fantastic. The music is incredible. The story is well thought out. The messages are compelling. The ending? That shit nearly had me in tears. From sadness. When Arnold says, "I know now why you cry, but it's something I can never do," that shit nearly broke me. Damn broke me. It was emotional as hell for a f***ing Terminator movie. Think about that. It was literally the embodiment of that one Titanic meme. And to top all of that off, this film features a fantastic Guns N' Roses song, which may or may not be partly responsible for getting me into heavy metal. Overall, this film is a masterpiece, and somehow better than Aliens. No, there's no somehow about it. This is the agreed upon best James Cameron movie. And it goes in S tier, above Aliens. Hell, it deserves to go into triple S tier. I never get tired of it, no matter how many times I watch it. The only issue with it is, 1, this green screen projection. Seriously, what the actual hell happened here? And 2, this is the best his filmography gets. It's all downhill from here. There's nothing bad, but there's no 9 or 10 or out of 10s again, unfortunately. True Lies. James Cameron's first comedy, and he almost knocks it out of the park. Schwarzenegger returns as an awesome spy named Harry, who hides his true job from his wife, Helen. However, Harry gets heated when he believes that she may be having an affair with a dude named Simon, who's lying about the things Harry does, saying he does them. This leads to an elaborate scheme that Harry tries to pull off that eventually leads to him and Helen be kidnapped by Arabic terrorists that Harry's agency was chasing after, and yeah, this film has a couple of story and writing issues, most notably the plot holes. Unfortunately, this is the first Cameron film to feature very prominent plot holes. You could dissect plot holes from the other ones, but they're mainly nitpicky. This, however, is very noticeable and kind of annoying. Why does Harry not get fired by his agency for wasting spy resources? Where does Harry get the nerve to be mad about his wife lying to him when he does the same to her for a living? Why does Helen not be mad at Harry after the final battle for lying to her? If you question these things, the film kind of falls apart a bit. However, it doesn't ruin the film that much. It is still hysterical, with so many great sight gags and witty dialogue that makes it stand out in Cameron's filmography. The action sequences are not only impressive, but also really funny and comedic. The effects hold up as per usual with Cameron. The performances from Cameron's cavalcade of tards, Schwarzenegger and Bill Paxton, are great as usual, but for me, the standout is Jamie Lee Curtis. She's one of my favourite actresses, and she delivers the role perfectly, being both capable and scared out of her mind. Whenever she gets loud, she is hilarious, as per usual. The scene of her striptease is unneeded in the context of the movie, but out of context... I mean, it's Jamie Lee Curtis. It is Jamie Lee Curtis, though. The editing and cinematography are great. The pacing, like The Abyss, can be slow in places, but it's also quite good. The writing is hysterical, and the music is very good. The story can be a bit iffy in places. The villains are a tiny bit stereotypical, and the ending isn't that great. It's still a great film, though, and shows that Cameron could not only direct awesome action, but also write funny characters and a funny story, ignoring all the plot holes. I put it in B tier. Titanic. Oh boy, here we go. Titanic. The former highest grossing film of all time before being beaten out by Cameron's own. Was it worth all the hype when it came out back in 1997? No. At least, I thought not. But on this most recent rewatch, I came to realize this is not a bad movie if the second half is genuinely fantastic, because the first half is goddamn rough. You know the story. Unhappy rich girl meets lovely poor boy. Then boat sinks and boy dies. The end. I don't need to explain the plot because people who haven't seen this movie even already know what the plot is about. Also, the smaller plot synopses I'm giving are a sign of the fact that I'm regretting making this video. Anyways, what is wrong with the first half? Well, long-time viewers of this channel, first of all, I'm sorry, know that I hate romance movies. They're usually overly schmaltzy, take themselves too seriously, and all have the exact same plot structure. You could say the same for other genres, but even when you mix genres, you usually get something different. But with this, however, if you mix romance with anything, it always features the exact same structure. There are a couple that break through the mold and I actually enjoy, like Love Actually, My Big Fat Greek Wedding, and my personal favourite, Lost in Translation. This film's romance is okay, I guess, but I'm just not that enthralled in it, mainly because of the fictional characters. Aside from Jack and maybe Rose, who is fine character-wise, but when his performance is distracting, the other fictional characters range from one-dimensional and cartoony to forgettable. Billy Zane as the villain is in one scene only threatening, and in the rest hilariously over the top. Like, Everyone hates the diamond ceiling subplot, right? It's not just me. Rose's mother never gets a chance to feel like a real person who's only having her daughter married to save her family because she cares for Rose. She never comes across as caring for her daughter, even though the movie wants you to. The real life characters are way more interesting, and I wish the movie featured more of them, as we can see both the hubris of the designers and the fear of the passengers, both those who died and those who lived. There are scenes like that in the film, but they're few and far between. The scene with the real life people, well, not the actual people, they're all dead, but I mean, the actors playing the real life people, like first finding out that the ship is going to sink, that's one of the best scenes in the movie. Do you want to know why? Because there's no stupid romance stuff and it's actually about the name of the goddamn movie. The writing also isn't that great either. The most annoying thing about it is the fact that it's so heavy-handed and so nailed into your head about the fact that the Titanic is unsinkable. It's the unsinkable ship. There's no way in a million years that the Titanic will ever sink. Whether the people talk like this in real life or not, it's still annoying. It feels like Cameron patting himself in the ass saying, "Oh, the irony! Oh, the irony." The fictional performances can be a little bit cartoony. Most notably, Kate Winslet's confusing accent. According to the film, she's from Philadelphia, but her British accent comes out at multiple points and it's very distracting. Winslet is good in other movies, but for being her stand-up performance, this is not that great. Leo is great though, as per usual. Many years late to do an Oscar, but he got it eventually. Not for this movie. I don't think his performance in that movie is that great, but it is probably the best of the fictional performances. The actors playing the real-life characters are also great. Another big writing issue is that they made Rose 17 and Jack is 20. I don't know. This makes the romance feel a bit Transformers 4-ish to me. I mean, it doesn't ruin the romance of the movie that much for me, especially when you know historical context, when a lot of teen girls would get sent off to marriage. But still, you couldn't have made her 18? I know I've complained a lot, but I like this film, I swear. When the Titanic hits the iceberg, the film suddenly changes gears, just like that. Aside from the annoying diamond plot, the second half where the boat is sinking is tense, scary, and terrifying. You remember that this actually happened and it turns bone-chilling. Combined with the sweeping shots and realistic violence, the score pushes a lot of terror in your veins, and when the lights go off and the boat splits in half, that shit just has me curled in a ball with my hands gripped to the wall. It was petrifying. Remember when I mentioned earlier in one of the other films that in later scores, James Cameron implemented terror and majesty into the score? Well, that's what this film does. James Horner just knocks it out of the park. May that man rest in peace. On top of that, as I said, the soundtrack is both mystifying and horrifying at the same time. The effects are incredible, the set and costumes are immaculate, and the grand scale really makes this film capture the feeling of being on the Titanic. The framing device is pretty interesting, and it features a great performance from Gloria Stewart, who, nearly at the age, I believe she was nearly 100 when this was filmed, she is also pretty great. James Cameron's returning herd of knucklehead McSpazatrons include Bill Paxton and Jeanette Goldstein, as well as newcomer Kate Winslet. One final criticism I have is the pacing. Being 3 hours, it can feel like the film is overly stretched out for no reason. It's both annoying and boring. Like, 1 hour and 37 minutes of this Titanic movie did not have to be about a romance, because the other 1 hour and 37 minutes is about the Titanic sinking. Well, actually, I timed it a couple years ago. 1 hour and 4 minutes of this movie is spent of the Titanic actually sinking. The namesake of the goddamn movie. But it could have been shortened. The film overall has good messages and interesting enough themes, and I would still consider it a more worthy film to be the highest grossing of all time than Avatar. But it's not a film I would go back to on regular circumstances. Both because the romance isn't that interesting, and the second half is too depressing. I am more positive than I used to be, though. And I use this line from the movie to represent that. It's pretty funny and works well. You can use it for other things as well if you want. I put it in B tier, below True Lies. Oh, Avatar. The highest grossing film in the history of cinema, both formerly and currently. A film that broke new ground in effects and CGI. It paved the way for motion capture in the future and is still a spectacle nearly 20 years later. And yet, no one talks about it. Why? Well, I think it's probably due to the fact that this is such a forgettable movie. Aside from the effects and other elements, which we'll get to later, this film has some of the most childish writing, forgettable characters, and predictable story I've seen in a major motion picture. This is the highest grossing film of all time? Really? This? Whatever. It takes place in the future and follows a paraplegic soldier named Jake Sully, who was sent to Pandora to become part of the Avatar Project, as his twin brother has died and he's the only person who has the same genes as him, so he can take his brother's avatar. When he first goes into the jungle, he gets lost and he meets a Na'vi warrior named Neytiri. The Na'vi are the native people of Pandora, and they're not leaving, even though the US Army is trying to run them out in order to get a rare mineral named unobtainium. No, I'm not joking. Same writer as Terminator 2, everybody! Dick decides to try and join the Na'vi in order to help drive the Na'vi out, but he becomes enthralled with the world, and even falls in love with Neytiri. Wow, so cool. I hope he doesn't have to lie about his true intention and how the film goes through a plot through that bad kids films go through. Oh wait, it does. My bad. That hurt. This movie's plot is genuinely really bad, only helped by the bad writing. There are no memorable lines in this movie. Not that a movie needs memorable lines. I don't remember a single line from films such as United 93, and yet that's still one of my favorite movies of all time. Avatar is all style, no substance. Why wouldn't the story be generic, or the writing be juvenile, or the characters be forgettable? Speaking of, my god, these characters. Everyone is the most cookie-cutter, generic archetypes in existence. Jake is the muscle-bound hero that changes his opinion as the film goes on. Neytiri is the strong, nature-loving female character with no personality and is overly serious all the time, with only a couple times where we see her smile. It's justified in the later movies, like in the third when her son is dead, so obviously she would be depressed, but like in this, she just is never smiling. Quaritch is kind of enjoyable and over the top, but in the wrong places. During the quote-unquote incredibly sad scene, where the Na'vi's home is getting destroyed, home tree as they call it, I think, he's just drinking a mug of coffee. Like, how am I supposed to take this scene seriously when she's like, this is here? The other Na'vi characters are even more forgettable. The writing is stale and overdone. No one in this film talks like how people talk. They all talk in quips and catchphrases, and it's really lazy. Speaking of lazy, unobtainium. Really, James? That's the best you could come up with? Same writer as Aliens, everybody. This film just has a sense of laziness to it in the story department. The performances are really boring. Aside from Stephen Lang, who is trying to make this performance fun, everyone else feels like they're on autopilot. The only returning member from Cameron's army of war criminals is Sigourney Weaver, and she feels so forgettable in this film. To top all of that off, this film's message is so heavy-handed. The film has an environmental message that doesn't feel organic or well implemented, just forced and over the top, and self-congratulatory as well. As if this is the first movie that ever talks about this. No, you're not. You're lying. Stop lying to us. The film also wants to bring a message on colonization or colonialization, but it feels so unsubtle about it thanks in part to the awful writing. Now, I know I've been bad-mouthing this film for the past however many minutes, but there are good things about it. Shockingly, the pacing is not slow. Yeah, surprisingly. The 2.5 hour long Alien movie, or not Alien movie, it's a sci-fi movie, is not slow. It's forgettable, but not boring. On my third viewing, it does feel slow, but my first and second viewings of the film felt pretty fast, mostly because I wasn't dreading the rewatch then. This film is forgettable, but it's not boring. Obviously, the effects are fantastic. Some look a bit iffy, but most of the time, the film looks gorgeous. They make the world of Pandora come alive. Speaking of the world building, I haven't mentioned that yet, it is creative and very unique. The score is amazing, the sets look cool, and the animation on the Na'vi still holds up. It really looks like it's there and I love it. The action sequences are also great, as well as the editing and cinematography. It features a sky battle in the end. A battle in the sky at the end. And that's niche. Aside from those things, I can see why this film doesn't have any long-lasting impact. It's forgettable, uncreative story-wise, has boring characters and performances, a heavy-handed and unsubtle message, and played-out writing that I've seen in tons of other movies. If If it wasn't for the effects and spectacle, this film would be very quickly forgotten about. To be honest, I prefer Transformers 2007 over this. Yeah, it has its flaws. By God, it has its flaws. But it isn't forgettable. There are so many moments that I remember, and the characters actually have personality and have interesting dynamics with each other. The characters of Avatar have no interesting dynamics with each other. No relationships that we can remember or pick out moments from. They either feel like mouthpieces for the message or obstacles for the main character. Hell, even Cameron's previous works have more interesting dynamics. Why did he sacrifice interesting characters in the story for Avatar? Why did he sacrifice good writing? Why did he make the message so unsubtle and so, like, how do I put this? Heavy-handed, I'll say it again, when that wasn't the case in his previous movies? I'll tell you why. This, as I said, this is a film of style, but no substance. It's junk food to be eaten and spat out. And so for that reason, it goes in B tier, below Titanic. Avatar: The Way of Water. If you're wondering, yep, the rest of the video is just going to be Avatar movies. Huzzah! Thankfully, this film, and the third, are better than the inaugural film. 15 years after the original, the humans return to try and colonize Pandora again. Because, why not? Quaritch's DNA and mind is replanted into a Na'vi, Avatar, giving him their strength and agility. He hunts down Jake and his new family, leading Jake to go to the Water Tribe in order to protect his family. The Water Tribe, called the Metkayina, are initially reluctant to bring them in, but the leader of the tribe accepts them as Jake was the previous Taruk Makto, who is a legendary Na'vi warrior. The film's plot doesn't really matter that much, as the spectacle is important. Yeah, the effects are even better than the first film. They look fantastic. Like, obviously, that's the one thing people know about these movies is that the effects are amazing. The water especially looks incredible. I won't talk about that too much because, everyone talks about that. I'm happy to say, though, that the writing and story is much better than the first. It's still not very good, though. The character of Loak is pretty interesting, and his bond with the banished tycoon, Payakan, I think his name was, is very nice. A character dynamic that's memorable and compelling. Take us away! Take us away! Anyways, they're not always great. Dick's dynamic with his two sons is very boring and generic. It's a typical, I'm hard on you because you're men and you're my sons bullshit, and it's very dumb. Thankfully, the writing isn't as heavy-handed as the original either. This time, we learn about whaling and how bad it is. It isn't as unsubtle as the first film. It's a lot more, they only make one mention of it, and they actually show you how bad it is. So it allows its audience to connect the dots in their brains without having to point it out for them. That's good writing. Good job, Cameron. You're back to being a good writer again, but not really. Also, the action scenes are still great, and the editing and cinematography has improved. Though I do like the guerrilla-style cinematography of the first film. It makes it feel more documentary-like in an aspect, especially when they're in the jungle. It's as if we're seeing the new world through a random found footage lens. The story is still kind of generic, but it does have moments that I wasn't expecting. Like the scene where Neytiri holds Spider hostage. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, Quaritch has a son named Spider that the first film just forgot to mention. He was left on Pandora and is now with Jake's family. That's cool. His dynamic with his father is also interesting, so that's two good dynamics so far. Great job, Cameron. Not only do you know how to write again, you know how to write characters again. Huzzah! The characters are fine in this one, but there's no overindulgent lie reveal trip this time. I mean, there kind of is, but it's not that focused on. The reveal takes place, and then after a couple seconds, they move on to battle. The 1 hour long final battle. The performances are still boring, and Cameron's platoon of assholes includes Sigourney Weaver and Kate Winslet. Weaver's performance as Kiri is pretty great, actually. You forget that's a 70-year-old woman playing a teenager, and it's very seamless. And magical effects, I guess. The other performances are better than the first, but not by much. The score is fantastic, as per usual, implementing the classics of James Horner's score while also making some new stuff. Simon, whatever his second name was, is very good at doing scores. This is my favorite of the Avatar movies, and it's not even close. Still like an 8 out of 10, though. Still better than the first film. I put it in B tier, below True Lies, but above Titanic. Avatar: Fire and Ash. Home stretch, come on, we can do this. This is the most recent Avatar movie and most recent James Cameron movie, as well as, aside from Piranha 2, which I hadn't seen before, the only film I didn't need to rewatch for this ranking. I was not going to wait until this film came to Disney Plus so I could watch again, postponing this ranking even further. Anyways, this film is on the same quality as the second for me, as I would rank them in the same place in my all films ranking, but I want to give it a lower rating so bad because this is a clear cut example of plagiarism. I'm so bored writing this, I'm just gonna copy and paste the plot synopsis from Wikipedia. The story follows the human-turned Na'vi Jake Sully and his family on the habitable moon Pandora as they face the combined threat of the human RDA forces and the Mangquan, a ruthless Na'vi clan. So yeah, now we have Evil Na'vi, which is actually a cool addition, I'll admit. Na'vi characters that are villains adds to the world building and makes the world of Pandora feel more unique and developed. However, the biggest issue with this film is that it doesn't do anything new that much. Aside from the Mangquan introduction, at some points it feels like a shot-for-shot remake of The Way of Water, and maybe even the first film. The creativity is waning quite a bit. They also didn't do much with the Mangquan. There are things that they use fire, but it just feels like an extension of the RDA that are just Na'vi. Korch's character is pretty interesting in this, as he becomes more Na'vi than man, as well as him trying to work with Jake Sully in order to get Spider, because, the two are, it's kind of their son, but, in a different way. It's like Dogman and Petey in the Dogman movie, but also not really. This still has some pretty cool set pieces, and for the first time has a really tense moment where Jake is considering whether or not to kill Spider after Spider saves him. For the first time, I was actually worried about a character in one of these films, which by film 3 is not a good thing. As I said, the dynamic between Korch and Jake is also interesting in this, as they have to team up a couple times, which creates a lot of great moments. However, this film still has writing problems, like the fact that Spider only now has problems with his breathing mask, when he didn't whatsoever during The Way of Water. There's also the ending where Korch just throws himself off the flying rocks. A f***ing awesome action set piece, I must say, but a stupid ending. Like, are you seriously gonna tease us for 4 more years to not reveal if he survived or not? I don't think he did, but stay tuned for Avatar 4 when that comes out in 2042, or something. The repetition of previous plot points is, again, really tedious. Like, we have Jake going to all the clans and joining the Turok, like the first film. We have a water battle, the talk with Spider and Quaritch in the White Room, and the death on the rocks behind the fire ships, like in the second film. Hell, we even have the wildlife battle in the first film. The only new feature is the gravitational pull that brings all the ships up. There's also this thing of Kiri not being born from Sigourney Weaver's Avatar, but rather Eywa. And the whole film, she's trying to get to Eywa. There's a really weird scene where it sounds like she's pleasured, I shall say. That's all I'll say. The effects are still amazing. The editing and cinematography is great, and I'm getting bored. These 3 films are just the exact same film with only minor differences. I really don't care about this world that much, and the fact that Cameron's only going to make these for the rest of his life is just depressing. I swear, if his last movie is Avatar 5, I'm going to write. It's going to happen. Anyways, this is still better than the first film, but I don't really care. This goes in B tier, below the second Avatar, but above Titanic. This is the ranking. In conclusion, this ranking seemed like a good idea at first, but as the films go on, I just realized how washed Cameron is. He hasn't been peaking since the 90s and is just stuck making Avatar movies, which are good, but they don't have the artistry of his older movies. He took the summer blockbuster invented by Spielberg and reinvented it, featuring the horror of the Terminator, the majesty of the Abyss in Titanic, the incredible writing and characters of Aliens in Terminator 2, as well as the comedy of True Lies. Hell, these elements overlap with each other. There can be horror in Titanic, incredible writing and characters in The Abyss, and majesty in, the effects of Terminator 2. My point is that before Avatar, he was one of the best filmmakers of our time. But now, he's just Blue Man. Blue Man that likes AI. I mean, good for him, I guess. With Avatar, not the AI stuff. At least we have those classics to remember and reminisce.